Okay, we are live. Thanks for checking out Museum Ship Mafia, where we take you behind the scenes of the museum ships across the country and around the world. My name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. And of course, it's another live crossover broadcast that we've got going on with the USS Slater and the Buffalo Naval Park. On tonight's live episode, we're going to be talking about icebreakers. We've got Connor coming over from the Alexander Henry, which is a museum ship, a Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker museum ship in Thunder Bay, Ontario. So I'm excited to have him on. And I also want to make sure that everyone is aware that this episode, tonight's live episode of Museum Ship Mafia, is made possible by Audible audiobooks. Make sure you listen to the good stuff. Check out the link that I've got to Audible below in the description of this broadcast. They've got a pretty good offer for you guys if you want to check them out. So let's see. I'm going to bring on John Epp, who is the curator of the USS Slater in Albany, New York, to check out the USS Slater, their YouTube channel. Search for USS Slater, and you can also check out their website, ussslater.org. John, you all settled in?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I didn't ask you how you were. I asked you if you were settled in.
Remember how I said I just woke up from a nap?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. I do remember that. All right.
Yeah.
And let's see. In addition to John, we've got Shane Stevenson, curator, Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. To check out the Buffalo Naval Park, simply search for their YouTube channel, Buffalo Naval Park. You'll see all kinds of videos that pop up. And of course, you can check out their website, buffalonavalpark.org. Like I always tell everyone, one of the simplest yet most effective ways to support these guys, to support these museum ships, is simply check out their videos. Click like, subscribe to their channels. It's a great way to support their efforts, boost their subscriber base. Speaking of that, John, where is the Slater right now when it comes to subscribers?
Oh, just over 2,200, I believe.
20. Okay, so you're continuing to grow. And I know the Buffalo Naval Park, you guys are well over 9,000.
Yeah, but we have. I just did a little search today. We have not grown. We've been stuck within this 10-person from 9,150 to 9,160 since January 4th. We have not broken out of that. We have not broken out of that 10-person range.
Oh, really?
It goes up to 160. It goes up to 9160, then back down to 1953, and then back up to 9. So we are kind of stuck at 19160. But I do want to say I apparently cannot comment. I can't find. I don't have. So I can't respond to anybody.
Really?
The scroll, it goes down, but there's no box. Like, I don't see a text field for me to comment. So I want to say hello to everyone. Lego, CC, hi, how are you? Frank, I just made a couple comments on our YouTube that you had responded to. Ed, how are you? So I just want to say hi to everybody.
Yeah, we've got CC, Frank, Eric Roper's on there.
Yeah.
Robert Evans.
Yeah, he's sharing.
Yeah. So and of course, Ed Webster. Ed's always there.
Hey,
Ed, you're the best. That's the best.
Yeah, so I all of a sudden, someone just became a member, but thank you. Who's that, Frank? Yeah. Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so yeah.
Well, and like I said a few moments ago, one of the best ways you guys can support the efforts of any museum ship that has a YouTube channel, simply check out their videos, click like, subscribe. It really does help when these museum ships are able to boost their subscriber base. So that's always kind of like a, I guess I just can't say it enough. Obviously you can donate, you can support these museum ships in many other ways, but to help boost and build their social media platform, it's huge. That's the way I look at, that's the way I view the next step all museums need to take in this day and age. So if you have not subscribed to the Buffalo Naval Park, if you have not subscribed to the USS Slater, please do so. All right. Oh yeah, well, yeah. If you haven't subscribed to History X, I mean, what's your problem? That we would love to have you. All right, John Epp, curator, USS Slater. What's going on with you guys lately?
We are starting to begin wrapping up some of our winter projects. March is pretty hectic for us in trying to get the ship cleaned and ready. It does honestly look like a disaster zone in the winter, how dirty the inside of the ship gets from all of our projects.
Mhm.
In my realm, I'm working on a few different projects. A small new exhibit in our museum space on USS Stafford. So that's what I got going on in my world.
I saw on Facebook you keep posting about all the volunteers that keep showing up. I mean, and it's everything from welding. It's crazy how much you got going on over there
Well, we
right now.
feed them on Mondays, so that helps.
That's
Just
interesting.
just on Mondays?
During the season, it's usually Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays as well. But in the wintertime, usually just Mondays.
Okay,
Okay.
that can I step in here, guys?
Sure.
We had
I guess.
no. Okay.
No, go for it. What we're gonna ask?
We actually talked about this in our staff meeting today, and we were left with the impression that the Slater volunteers pay for their own meals all the time. Is that? But I'm now hearing that might not be correct.
Okay, so we usually have one of the staff. It's usually Joanne, our business manager, or sometimes one of the volunteers. They'll create a dish, they'll bring it in and serve it, and we have a suggested donation to help just cover the cost of the ingredients. So it's usually like $2. But
Okay,
yeah.
because we were, we had a couple of our staff go to the Slater, and they said everyone puts money in a pot, and then they have one volunteer who's a cook, and he goes and buys all the food and then cooks.
Oh, that. So that was the work week when you guys came
that's
out
a
in
work
October.
week. But when
yes.
Okay, so but when it's not a work week, they contribute. You said the staff person makes a meal or something, and then that's Mondays in the wintertime.
Yes. It's usually breakfast as well. We cook breakfast.
I'll make a notation of that. I appreciate that.
Hey, Frank just threw in before we get to the Buffalo Naval Park, Frank threw up a question after. How do the subscriptions help the USS Slater and the Buffalo Naval Park? It pretty much boils down to this. Any YouTube channel that reaches 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time becomes eligible to receive advertising dollars from YouTube. And what, John, when did you guys had a video, you had that engine startup video, which was pretty damn cool, that pushed you guys over 1,000 subscribers. You became eligible. When did that happen?
The video was September, and I believe we became monetized in October.
Yeah. And it's always been a big push for me. And as I always say, it's one of the simplest yet most effective ways, for this reason, to help these museums, any museum, really. It doesn't have to be a naval museum. It could be any museum. If you're aware that they've got a YouTube channel, by clicking subscribe, liking their videos, it helps them get closer so that they can then begin receiving advertising dollars from YouTube. And it adds up after a while. The more views they get, the more dollars they receive. And I know the Buffalo Naval Park's receiving those advertising dollars. The USS Slater is now, and eyes on the project is the way I put it. So the more eyes we get on those museums, the better. Let's see.
Well, then the Buffalo Naval Park, their new membership, that's, you got that as well.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's what Frank...
I think that's what he meant, yeah.
Yeah, like
what?
He did, but now all of a sudden it shows in the stream, it says new member, and his name, Frank's name, turned green. And so now as he's responded 803, 804, his name is separated out of almost like, because everyone else's is a black name or handle, and then his is turned green. So it says he became a new member, but what did he become a new member of, I guess, is what.
Oh, I guess we'll find out. Uh,
I guess,
let's
but
see. Let's see. And before we
yeah,
get
that's
to
good.
what's going on with the Buffalo Naval Park, I just want to remind everybody, we can't really do this in any way, shape, or form without subscribers and viewers. We love having you guys join us here tonight. So please submit your comments, submit your questions. We'll get to them. Let us know where you're from, where in the country you're from. We're going to have Connor joining us, from the Alexander Henry. He's all the way up in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Let us know where you're watching us from. Chopper 73, he always tunes in from Australia.
Mhm.
Is Chopper Australian? I always
I
forget. I
think
can't
so, yeah.
can't remember if it's Australian or New Zealand. And also what channel you're checking us out on. This goes out live to 3 channels: USS Slater, Buffalo Naval Park, and History X. It always kind of bugs me that Buffalo Naval Park gets more views for these live videos than History X does. But you know what? Just let us know where you're watching from. I always find that pretty curious. So with that being said, Shane, what's the latest with the Buffalo Naval Park?
I would love to be like John. I'd love to be like John and say we're beginning to wrap up winter projects, but we are not. We are on fire. You know, and we have a lot of projects going on now that will be ready by March 25th when we open this year. But we've brought on a lot of new energetic staff over the past 12 months, and they see opportunities for us. And so we've been ramping up with a lot of newer ideas and things. So we're still kind of in that off-season mode. And we talked again at our staff meeting about, okay, are we going to have everything ready by March 25th? And we will have. So we're opening up a new area on the Sullivans, which even before the capsizing event wasn't available. So we're doing that. The Admiral's quarters is completely getting remade. New carpeting, new furniture. We repainted. We're getting the furniture that we have, like in the cruise book photos from 1972 and 1974. So
That's going on right now.
Yeah.
Because I watched the Power Up videos.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
Thank you, and thank you to Barry, of course.
Yeah, on the Sullivans. If you guys aren't aware, check out the Buffalo Naval Park's YouTube channel, because they've had, I think that was the 3rd update video that you had on getting power to the Sullivans, and it's a long process. I get it. They're pretty informative, but I had no idea that you also had this stuff going. I knew that you were redoing the Admiral's quarters, but I didn't know. I mean, you're talking about furniture. You're talking about all this stuff. Are we going to be seeing that?
Yeah, when it's ready. We did do a video on YouTube, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, maybe. And then I did a member video about for members only, for us, about the Admiral's quarters as well. And what we're trying to do is make it more like a big ship, right? Like a capital ship. Like we've looked at pictures from the Missouri, and when we were there, we walked through the captain's quarters and the Iowa, the New Jersey, and those are areas that they could have events in. And so we said this might be a way of having people have a little more elegance with an event. Maybe we could have a dinner.
Oh, I'd love to see. You and I have already talked about this. I'd love to see you guys host wine tastings there. And
yes,
yeah,
and
so
that is
would...
big. That is something I brought to the table. So let's hope that we can continue to make that connection. But for me, it's kind of we're kind of all over the place. I would love to be able to sit in the collections and just work for 5 hours without interruption, but in our environment it just doesn't work that well. I can't do that. So we have to be available for multiple things throughout the day. And I know I've been a little slacking on the YouTube videos, so I'm just letting everyone know that I'll be getting back to that in a few weeks. We'll start doing 2 to 3 a week again, and I'll continue with the member videos and the 2000 watch with Steven for the members.
Well,
things like
and
that.
I wanted to bring that up because you guys had what I thought was a pretty fun exclusive, if you want to say, 2000 watch for all of your members. I really enjoyed it. That was about 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and John was on there too. There was about 8 of us, and we got to hit you guys with just about any question that we wanted, and that was a good time. So for those of you that aren't aware, if you want to, I don't know, Shane, what's the best way to describe this? Just get behind the scenes or get you guys to kind of discuss stuff that you wouldn't normally throw into the public 2000 watch?
That's exactly what it is. It is what we're kind of marketing our 2000 watches as. This is an opportunity for you to ask us any question. We don't want to drive it. Like, say, the Museum Ship Mafia, we drive the content and the conversation. In the 2000 watch for members only, we want the members to drive the conversation and give us ideas, and we can see those ideas to fruition. So it's really user driven as opposed to back end driven. So, and look at Eric. Did you see Eric H's?
What?
Did you see his comment? I love it.
What, this one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I threw that up there. Yeah. Way to go, Eric. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you guys are going to be doing that every month for members. It only costs, what is it, $5 to become a member of the Buffalo Naval Park?
Yeah, and then you get 2 member videos a month and 1 live 2000 watch. And so what we've decided, Stephen and I, was the 2000 watch will be exclusive to members now. We used to we would just put them out. But now this Museum Ship Mafia is going to be our live stream for everybody. The 2000 watch will be for members only.
And just so that anyone that wants to become a member of the Buffalo Naval Park, what Shane's talking about is if you literally go to their YouTube channel where you would normally click subscribe, there is also a join button. And if you want to join and get access to these videos, click on that button. And it's what, $4.95, $5 a month.
Yeah, $4.99.
Yeah. I recommend it. And you know what? It may not be for everybody. I think it's a lot of fun, but if it's not for you, then quit. Quit after 1 month. I don't think you'll be doing that though, because like I said, I really enjoyed it. John, what did you think about their first one?
It was a lot of fun.
I hope so, and I want thank you, John.
Kind of harked back to when you guys first were starting the 2000 watch.
A little. That
was about a year ago, right?
Yeah, we started it in February.
It would have had to have been about a year ago because remember the Sullivans took on water in April.
Yes.
Yep.
And so they probably were, well, John, they probably did a couple of rounds of 2000 watch before they took on water. It was almost
every other week you guys were doing it, wasn't it? It wasn't just once a month?
No, I think because it was so new, I think what we said was, oh yeah, okay, let's do it every couple of weeks. And then the Sullivans happened. We were actually doing, as people like to remind us, we were doing a live 2000 watch when we saw the Sullivans starting to have a problem on April 13th. That was a Wednesday.
Yeah. I remember that. Of course I was watching, John was on. You were, right? Because John was on.
I was watching.
Well, yeah, I was watching too, and they made that comment. What's that?
I think I did. I said something's going on with the Sullivans or something.
Yeah, and then of course the next day the news broke out. Those videos are still up if you wanted to check it out. Check out the 2000 watch on April 13th, 2022. And Shane does mention it towards the end where the Sullivans, and then the very next day it's on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Everyone's talking about it. So
well, we've gotten some flack over that because well, then why the hell were you live streaming? Why didn't you stop? But we had no idea of what the catastrophic nature of that. And we were there till about 1:30 in the morning because we called a couple staff people after that, because when we left the live stream, it was so much worse than when I walked in 2 hours prior. And so that's when we got on board for about 4 hours to try and, assess and survey what was going on and shut doors and hatches where we could. But by that time it was so.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to reopen that can of worms, and start that all over again. The good news is the Sullivans is floating. It's solid. You guys, are making plans for a 20, summer 2023. So look forward to the positives, not back on the negatives.
I think you should plug your video, Ken.
Which video is that?
Yeah,
that came out last month.
Thank you, Matthew.
Your 40-minute video. Yeah.
I can mention that at the end as well. But if for those of you that haven't checked it out, I have a video on History X called "The Grave Robbers," and it's about the looting and the stripping of the World War II warships, battleships, battle cruisers, even some destroyers that are in the South Pacific, in and around Indonesia. If you're not aware, those shipwrecks are disappearing, not like the Titanic that's kind of rusting away or anything like that. These are being strip mined, if you will, looted for their steel, for their metal. Check out History X. It's called The Grave Robbers. It's about a little less than 45 minutes long, and it's pretty eye-opening. It seems to be something that the whole world knows about except the United States, some people, but it could easily happen to U.S. shipwrecks as well. So check out The Grave Robbers on History X. Thanks for bringing that up, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a very well done video. And the way you spliced and edited, you really spent a lot of good quality time on making that a very succinct and understandable presentation to a potential complex problem.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Well
Thanks.
done.
I hope people continue to check it out. Anything else that John or Shane you want to touch on before we
Agree,
Eric? Couldn't agree with you. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more.
And thanks for your support, Robert. I appreciate that. Yeah. Ed, I have a deer in the headlights look. I always do. But thank you. No, we're excited. We're redoing the tour route. We're going to try and open a little bit more of the Sullivans this year than has been in the past. So, and as I said, we're opening up the 3-inch 50 ready service locker, which has never been opened. So we've got our caretaker. He's in there painting and cleaning, and we're going to plexiglass it off, and that's on the 01 level. And and I'm also doing add-ons this year. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to but in addition to the curator tour that we're doing at the Naval Park, I'm doing 4 add-on tours a month. And this is something we learned from the Iowa. So someone would buy a ticket, but for 30 minutes, they would get a special tour, and it's an extra $10 or $15. And then in addition to them being able to just wander around the ship like normal, they would get this add-on. And then I have a gun tour that I've created, which will go to the mounts and the turrets and the barbette. And then a weapons control, which is where you and I were, Ken, on where the SPG or the SPS.
Are you talking about that freaking platform that we were on?
Yeah. I'm talking about.
I finally was able to block that out of my memory, and then you bring it back.
So the weapons control is back there on the aft superstructure, the Little Rock, and so we're going to be taking people up there, and it's just going to be a little add-on to the ticket that they buy. So that's a whole bunch of that this year going on.
So it sounds to me like you guys are you're in a mad dash to get everything ready for 2023 season. That's pretty exciting stuff.
Thank you. Don't mean to take up on more time.
No, that's all right. John, anything else that you wanted to touch on before we get to our icebreaker discussion?
Just similar to Shane. In the past, we've always had the add-on tours to the collection space or the engine room, but we never really shared it too much. We didn't advertise it a whole lot. Last season, we really pushed it. We combined everything. Full tour, collections and engine room, stem to stern, we called it. Mm-hmm. We got, I think, an extra 600 people to visit the engine room and collections last year, if memory serves. So that's just extra money for the museum. Yeah. So it was a huge success.
Have you had any discussion at all? I mean, the engine startup video that you guys had, I thought was fantastic. You got well over 100,000 views. What, it could be approaching 200 for all I know. It was a great video, about 15 minutes long. Do you think that, or do you expect that could drive up the interest for people to want to check out your engineering spaces?
Yeah, actually, we did have people visit us saying, we saw the video, which was great. We are exploring doing little, I guess you could say speaker events like quarterly. One of them is maybe bringing a select group of people down to the engine room and maybe starting our emergency generator.
Nice.
That is very preliminary, so it's a very good chance we will not do it, but it is in the discussion.
Got it.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, I just glanced at the clock. We got to get to the subject, which I'm pretty excited about. Let's see. So let me bring this up real quick. So here's the deal. We've got an opportunity to talk about icebreakers. I don't know a lot about icebreakers. Quite frankly, I consider them to be a little bit on the mysterious side for me, and I was really excited about this opportunity to learn about them. The Alexander Henry is a museum ship icebreaker. It was from the Canadian Coast Guard, on display in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and it's
cool.
Yeah, isn't that a cool picture? So I got that picture. We're gonna have Connor on. He's waving in the background. Yeah, Connor, I know I haven't clicked you on yet. All right. Give it a rest. And he's talking, and so we're gonna bring him on. And you know what? I love the fact that Connor's so excited, because I have a feeling we're gonna learn a lot from this guy. Without further ado, Connor Kilgore from the Alexander Henry Icebreaker Museum Ship Museum in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Connor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. No, the reason why I was just smiling like that is because that is actually one of my favorite pictures of the Henry.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
So, I guess, should I just start with her basic history then?
Well,
or just
are you on board right now? Connor, are you on board right now?
No, he's not.
Okay.
I'm at home because, unfortunately, unlike some of you guys, our ships aren't heated, or at least my ship isn't heated. And it's about 10 degrees colder inside the ship than it is outside. And it's hovering at about 0 right now, or at freezing. So is that 32 for you guys? Yeah, 32.
Yes.
So,
what's in freedom units?
And that's where it is for me. So I'm comfy at home.
Here,
and how much ice do you have? You want to?
I'm sorry, what?
How much ice?
Oh, I think we're seeing about 2.5 to 3 inches of ice. Not inches, feet of ice around the ship right now.
Jeez.
So you're in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Yes.
And of course, I've got questions about the Alexander Henry. You're going to be giving us quite a little bit of history on that. But for those of us what is it like to live in Thunder Bay, Ontario? You are way the hell up there. I'm in Minneapolis, which is north, but I mean, you're way north of me. Do you guys have a Starbucks? What is it like in Thunder Bay, Ontario?
Well, we do have a Starbucks. I think there are actually 2 in town. One's in the mall. But we have more Tim Hortons.
There we go.
But because we're right on that line, we also have Robin's Donuts, which is a rival chain, which is lesser known than Tim's. Our winters last about 5 months of the year, and so it's quite cold. And it actually hasn't been too bad. And because of the fact that we are right on Lake Superior, we are also a very active shipping port for both grain, fertilizers, as well as steel as of recently. So we've been becoming more and more of an active port again. So,
are you born and raised Thunder Bay, or is that where you're originally from?
my family is mostly from Thunder Bay. I personally was a week early, so I showed up in Hamilton. That was my birth city, but they moved back up pretty quickly after that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say probably I'm 27 now, so I'd say about half of my life I've lived in this city.
And before we clicked on,
Mhm.
Maybe about 15 minutes before we started the live broadcast, we were talking to you a little bit. Do I remember you saying right now there's about 3 feet of ice around the ship?
That was what I heard. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 2.5, 3 feet of ice.
Shane, when is the last time you had 3 feet of ice around the any of the ships?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's tough. We do get ice every year, but maybe the thickness is maybe a foot or 10 inches or something like that. So to hear 3 feet of ice, causes challenges, no doubt, to the ship.
Yeah. So what kind of temperatures are you seing in Thunder Bay?
Well, right now we're hovering right around freezing, so 32 for you guys. But last week we saw -40 temperatures at night, and -40 is the same for both Fahrenheit and Celsius. So that's easy to calculate. But our winters generally average about -20 to -25. Up for about 2 months from January till the end of February. Then it starts warming up again.
What about summers? What are summers like in Thunder Bay?
Probably no hotter than 32 Celsius. So translate that to Fahrenheit for the American viewers. It doesn't get too hot.
That's.
Well, wait a second.
Isn't the formula you add 32 and then 4 or something? Or
it was something like it.
You double it and then add 4.
Yeah.
So 32 plus 32 is 64 plus 4 would be about 70 degrees.
It's 89.
It's what?
Yeah, I was going to say
89 Fahrenheit.
I used to live in Toronto, and let's see. So it was like you doubled it and then you added 32.
Oh,
so
you
doubled
added 32.
Yeah, that's what it was. So you doubled it. In this particular
sorry.
case, 32, 64. Then you add 32. So that takes it up. So, you can get to the mid 90s. All right.
Yeah.
So,
and I love it. Eric H. Yeah, he answered it as well. 89.6.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Eric to the rescue.
I always say math was not my strong point. So thank you for not listening to me.
Yeah. And Santa Claus, pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right.
Tell us about the hockey team up there in Thunder Bay.
Which one?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Would you guys have OHL? Is it? Yeah, it'd be OHL.
Yeah, we have NHL up here, but that's not the main reason of this interview. But go Leafs! I'm a Leafs guy personally, and it's partially because my grandfather's a Leafs fan. So
okay. Being a Sabres fan, obviously, but Connor, you're a good guy. I like that. Thank you.
All right. So the Alexander Henry, Icebreaker, Canadian Coast Guard Icebreaker. Yeah. And it's a museum ship that you guys have on display there to learn more about what Connor's got going on there. Their website, which I thought was pretty impressive, www.tmtb.ca. TMTB.ca. TMTB, what does that stand for?
Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay. You see, up until this year, we were the Lakehead Transportation Museum Society. However, we have decided to rebrand the museum itself to be the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay because we feel it reflects our role within our community. Because while our main feature is the Alexander Henry, our goal is to be the transportation hub for this region because our city has built many things. We've built ships, we've built planes, we've built buses, we've built trains, and on and on and on. I know you guys are all World War II guys. Well, my city built hurricanes and helldivers during the Second World War.
Nice.
Really?
Yes.
You built hurricanes up there?
Yes, we did.
No kidding.
Yeah, we built hurricanes, and we also built helldivers because the British were considering using them on their carriers. They decided not to use them, and the Americans bought up the contract. So we continued building Helldivers. So
Very cool.
And we've also built buses and trains and everything else, and ships, which is what the Henry is.
Mm-hmm. And how did you become involved with the Alexander Henry?
So I became involved with the Henry. Actually, I can give you the exact date. Was July 1st, 2020. So 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And basically, in Canada, we had very strict restrictions during the height of COVID, and I was bored out of my skull. The Henry opened for exterior tours only, and I decided to go aboard. I absolutely loved it, and by the next month, I was a volunteer, and now this is where I am now.
All right, that's pretty cool. So you're basically telling me that you were bored during the pandemic, you went for a tour, and then it sucked you in.
Yes, basically. I was already a history buff before then, and I was following the whole story of the Texas before then, but I wasn't really into museum ships until I got aboard the Henry. And just as a side note, because of my interest in the Henry, I ended up joining the Museum Ships Facebook page, where I then ended up becoming an admin there probably about 2 months later.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I'm also with the Museum Ships Facebook page.
So are you, Connor, are you a volunteer there, or are you, how does that work? What are the paid staff? What's the organization
So
like?
currently we have no regular paid staff.
Okay.
We have no regular paid staff. We're all volunteers. We're an all-volunteer organization. I'm not a board member yet, but I am one of the most senior non-board members at this point. And I'm trusted to do things like this.
Good for you.
You know, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you. I love this story already. And the reason I love this story, and of course, yes, we're going to get to the ship, but I love the fact that you just showed up, and this is a test. This should be a lesson to a lot of people. You just showed up, you went for a tour, you loved what you saw. You probably got a very, very good impression by the other volunteers that were there, and you decided to try and find out how you could help.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I didn't even get a full tour because we weren't allowed inside the ship under COVID regulations at that time. So I just walked to the decks. Like, I was just given an exterior tour.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was just how impressive it was for me.
And the reason I love that so much is that anyone that has any kind of a museum ship in their area, local, that they check out, it could, and they want to do more if they have time or they want to volunteer, it could be as easy as that, is just showing up for a tour. And what did you do? You started talking to people and say, hey, how can I help?
Yeah, basically about halfway through the tour, my tour guide that day, who was named Charlie, basically was pointing out things that still had to be done. And I basically said, I can do that. And I inquired, how would I go about becoming a volunteer? And eventually it led me joining.
Well, I think that's a great story. I love hearing stuff like that. And, you know, of course, Shane's always talking about, you know, increasing the volunteer base at the Buffalo Naval Park. The USS Slater has an incredibly strong volunteer base, and anyone that wants to help out with a museum ship, these are operations that would love to get that kind of support. So I think that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that with us.
It's a great story.
So, all right, the Alexander Henry. You sent me a whole bunch of pictures, which I thought were fantastic, and I've got them here, you know, ready to show people tonight.
Yeah.
What do you want us to know about the Alexander Henry and icebreakers in general? So I'll let you take it away. Go ahead.
Okay, well, in order to understand why the Henry came to be built, you got to talk about the lakes themselves. The Great Lakes do freeze over most years to some degree. This year's not as much, but well, Lake Superior is now really starting to freeze over. But in general, it's not as much. But there is need for icebreakers, especially right near the end of the shipping season and right near the beginning of the shipping season. Well, in the United States, with your significantly larger budget for these things, you had quite a few icebreakers on the lakes. Most notably, I believe someone mentioned it in the comments, there was the icebreaker Mackinac, which was a massive, yeah, there it is right there, the Mackinac. And but Canada did not have as many. And there was a push in the early 1950s to have an icebreaker built for the upper lakes, which are Lake Huron, Lake Superior, for the Canadian side. Well, this would result in about 1953 or 54, depending on which article I've read, essentially the order for a new icebreaker to be built on the Great Lakes. It was designed by a Canadian company named German and Milne, which were architects, naval architects, and they designed a 210-foot icebreaker to clear the ice and deploy buoys, and also, as a third role, also act as a lighthouse tender. So she's actually 3 roles in one. She's got the hull of an icebreaker, she's got the utilities of a buoy tender, but she's also got more storerooms for bringing foodstuffs to various lighthouses around the Great Lakes. And
okay, so wait, let me interrupt you real quick. So that kind of gives us an idea of the demand, why it needed to be built.
Mm-hmm.
What makes an icebreaker different than how not only does how an icebreaker works, but I mean physically, what makes it different from an average ship?
Well, thicker hull for a start. Henry is classified as a light icebreaker under the old system because she had a single reinforced hull. To give you an idea, her bow is 11 inches thick. Her sides,
11 inches.
Yes, 11 inches. Her sides are 3, and her stern is 1 inch. So considerable amount of steel, and that's why, despite being only 210 feet, she weighs, how much was it again? I had it written down here. She weighs 2,537 tons, despite being only 210 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it also comes down to power. She had 2 Fairbanks Morris, she has, I should say, they're still there. 2 10-cylinder Fairbanks Morris diesel engines, and they allowed the ship to punch through, what was the number? Basically, she could go at about 2 knots through most of the ice she experienced on the Great Lakes, which was slow, but it was steady. That's a good picture right there. That's when we brought her to where she is right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there wasn't necessarily an order that I saw to the files. So
if anyone has any questions about pictures as they come up, feel free to ask.
I actually have a question.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, John.
So the first one we saw with the launching, so she was built in Thunder Bay, correct?
Yes. So what ended up happening was the contract was given to Collingwood Shipyards, who then subcontracted the work to the Port Arthur Shipbuilding Company. Now, the city of Thunder Bay was originally 2 cities, the city of Port Arthur and Fort William, and they amalgamated in 1970. So the Port Arthur Shipbuilding Company is on the north side of Thunder Bay, and they were contracted to build the Alexander Henry after they had just finished up a series of minesweepers for the Royal Canadian Navy. So she was the very next ship after that. And she was laid down on the 25th of 1957. She she launched on the 18th of July, 1958, and that's the picture you see here. And that was 65 years ago. Yeah, so it'll be 65 years ago. And then she entered service on July 30th, 1959. So there's a lot of Julys. It's all in July. So she took 2 years to build.
Where is she in relation to where this photo was taken right now?
She's probably about 10 minutes down the waterfront in terms of driving.
That's pretty cool. It does. Yeah. Is there any remnants of the shipyard?
It's still running.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
The shipyard is now called Heddle Marine, and because the shipbuilding company, the Port Arthur Shipbuilding Company went under in '94, but now it's owned by Heddle Marine, and they do ship maintenance as well as component manufacturing there. And they're currently looking for a contract, from what I've heard, to build something.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I could pipe in too, Connor, thanks for being here again. I appreciate it. So what do you know what the shipyard was building? That seems like a long time from keel laying to commissioning, I guess.
How long ago was it?
2 years?
2
Did you
years.
say? Yeah, that's quite a bit of time. Like, were they doing marine? Were they doing lake freighters? Like, what else
let
were
me
they
take a
building?
look. Because I actually have it right here. I have literally the list of all the ships they built because I'm that type of guy. And let's see.
I'll throw one at you, Shane. Going to the Slater. Slater was built at Tampa Shipbuilding. DEs are supposed to take anywhere from a month to like 3 months to build. Every single DE built by Tampa Bay Shipbuilding took an average of 7 to 13 months.
Oh my god!
Slater took 11 months. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so to answer your question, during the time the Henry was being built, they built 2 dredges, 2 barges in that time. So they were working on other projects along with the Henry.
Okay. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Now, when something like so you talked about the thickness of the hull, you talked about the thickness of the bow, the sides, the stern. But when you think about, like you said, right now the ice is 3 feet thick around this thing. Okay,
yeah.
So
normally,
were there operating parameters where it was effective, and then certain conditions where it wasn't?
Yeah, basically, and that's why she is classified as a light. We wouldn't take her like right into the heart of the Arctic Circle, for example. She doesn't have the power for that. And what also is a thing on the Great Lakes is the Great Lakes, as far as shipping goes, for the most part, it shuts down for 2 months from probably the first couple weeks of January right till the later half of March. So icebreakers aren't needed in that time. So the thickest ice, the icebreakers, with a few exceptions, never really have to touch it. They just have to wait. So they just sit in their ports and they wait. And then when the shipping season starts again, the icebreakers go out.
Can you go back, Ken? Can you go back to that the launching photo?
Yeah. Sure.
Please.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about this. Take a look at the flag by the crane in the background. That is a full Union Jack. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Do you know the history of that? It's not like the flag of Ontario.
Well, Canada was a member of is still a member of the Commonwealth, which is a collection of former British colonies. And it should also be pointed out that Canada was a dominion at that time, or at least a functioning dominion. So we were an independent country, it's still this way today. The Queen is still technically, the King is now the head of state. Yes, we're still getting used to that over here.
Let's see.
Okay, thank you. So I just am surprised there wasn't a provincial flag up there, or something. But I get
there would probably be a provincial flag somewhere here. I've seen this picture from another angle, and there is a Canadian flag of that period and a provincial flag as well.
Thank you.
You can only see the British one from here, though.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So I interrupted you with a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Where do you want to head next?
Well, after she was commissioned on the 30th of July. She would serve until 1985, mostly on the Great Lakes. Initially, she did have some problems with her design. She suffered from vibrations, and this was partially due to her propellers, which were 4-bladed props. But this was mostly fixed by actually switching to 6-bladed props. And I don't understand the engineering behind it myself, but apparently that did change a lot of the dynamics, I guess. That's a beautiful picture right there. And she also had a problem with her engines. Her max speed was 13.5 knots. And initially, for at least the first decade, she occasionally would have trouble with engine fires or with stack fires. And they weren't, apparently, depending on who you asked, it was either a design problem or over-oiling, depending on who you asked. But they did eventually fix that problem, although it did actually lead to the Henry to have a less than nice nickname within the Coast Guard, the burning trash can.
But that's such a term of endearment.
Yeah, But despite that, Henry did her duty for 20 years and more. She, every single year, all year round, she would go out to these lighthouses, resupply them, because back in those days, the lighthouses weren't automated. So you would have to go every 2 weeks and resupply the lighthouses and the workers and their families that lived out there. In this city, where, like in Thunder Bay, she's famous for the fact that for us, she's the sign that spring is coming. Because for the people who lived in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, when they saw the Henry enter the harbor, they knew, okay, we're less than 6 weeks away from spring. It's coming. So for a lot of people, the Henry was just a sign of, yes, we're almost through this. And that was actually one of the main motivating forces for a lot of our older volunteers to actually try and bring the Henry here back in 2017.
Well, and I want to hear about the effort to get it there. But, you know, first of all, I dug into some of the pictures that you sent. I mean, they're pretty impressive. You know, and I really like this one because obviously, you know, it's iced over, but then in the foreground, you've got some guys speeding past on an ice racer. Yep. So, you know, it just kind of shows what life was like, you know, up there. And I think this is a great picture. You know, going
those ice racers are still buzzing around in the harbor.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We get them a lot here in Minneapolis, Lake Harriet, and yeah. So I see them a lot. But for a lot of other people, they probably don't even know what that is.
Yeah. But, I love that one heck of a crane. Like just the comments. Just reading through the comments here. Yeah, she's a good-looking ship. I'll say that.
What's the compliment?
What's the crew pump?
Oh,
thank you. I was
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're sharing a brain cell. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the crew like?
So the crew complement of the Henry was 33, with 4 officers, 4 engineers, 4 cooking staffs, and the rest were bosuns and deckhands. And from what I understood, the crew generally was on about a year and a half at a time. Some guys were only in there for like a summer or for a season. Then they would leave. New guys would come on. But I think in total, over the course of her 25 years, Henry had 6 captains. So that kind of gives you a rough estimate for officer turnover.
What do you know about, you know, do you have any knowledge or any kind of exposure as to what it was like to actually, I'll use the term serve on the Icebreaker, you know, what the conditions were like for the crew?
Conditions on board were actually cold, at least during the winter months. But from what I've been told, because I have talked with a few members of the crew, generally the life on board, if you weren't an engineer, was relatively comfortable. Unlike some of our American counterparts who slept in bunks, like bunk rooms with tons of guys in a single room, Henry was actually divided up so that it was 2 guys in a single room, and it was 12-hour shifts, so they never saw each other. So it was actually relatively quite cozy on the ship, comparatively speaking. And internally, I don't think I sent you any internal shots, and I wish I had done that. But a lot of the inside of the ship is actually wood, so it has a really nice look on the inside, especially on the 3 upper decks.
I checked out, you know, I looked up as many videos of the Alexander Henry that I could find on YouTube, obviously posted by people that were touring the ship, and I came across something, a common theme that I really didn't expect. Not necessarily when it came to the subject of the videos themselves, but the people that commented on the videos. And the common theme was, well, I had an uncle that served on the Henry, or, you know, and it sounded to me, the common theme was that it was rough. Some people didn't get along with other people. And you had mentioned a few moments ago that they would only last maybe about a year or so, and then they were gone or they quit. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't know, honestly. just generally from what I've heard, most of the Coast Guard guys I've talked with
Sure.
that served on the Henry enjoyed their time. And they might have
Okay.
had problems with certain individuals, perhaps, but they thought the ship itself was just fine.
Well, when I see a picture like this,
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of, what am I trying to say? A certain kind of guy.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. It definitely does, because when you work, especially in these environments where it's minus 30, it does take a certain type of person to tolerate this, because you're not moving quick. There's a constant sound of ice scraping on your hull. It's cold. Yeah, it takes a lot, and it still does. Like, our modern ships are infinitely better than what Henry was, but it was still a challenge. And I would not be surprised if people joined the Coast Guard or joined the ship out of just, oh, I'll do this for a season, make some money, and then they just didn't like it because it was very different to what they had probably been used to.
Yeah, and you talk about a ship that's 200 feet long. Well, that sounds like a lot. But I could imagine, when you're in a situation like this, like you said, moving slowly, that 200 feet can get pretty small.
Yeah, and you also got to look at the ship. About half of it is just cargo holds and hull. Yeah, the whole, there's nothing in the front. There's like the bosun's locker, and there's like 2 cargo holds. That's it. So there's no living space in front of the superstructure.
I don't know if you've actually ever, checked out Museum Ship Mafia before, but one of the things that we talk about a lot when it comes to the USS the Sullivans, the Fletcher class destroyer at the Buffalo Naval Park, we frequently talk about dry docking.
Yes.
To make repairs, and you sent a couple of pictures that I thought were pretty cool.
So this was her latest dry docking. Before I get to this, I just want to explain, when the Coast Guard retired Henry in '85, they retired her because a new ship had come online called the Samuel Risley, which is still in service today and is doing the Henry's job. So we actually today, like people of my generation, have the same association with the Risley that my parents had with the Henry. But when they retired her, the decision was made to actually donate her to a museum in Kingston, Ontario, which is right at the mouth of the St. Lawrence Seaway. And she went there. And one of the beautiful things about Kingston was they had a dry dock as part of their museum. And that's what you're looking at here.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is it part of the museum, but it actually works.
Yes. This is her 2010 dry docking. It was actually part of a process. They were actually rebuilding the dry dock at the same time, but they used the opportunity to actually do some work on the hull. So we're 12 years since our last dry docking, and we're hoping at some point to get her into dry dock again later down the line, but we're not in urgent need of it just yet.
So this might be a 2-part question. I'll give I'll give one in a second. But so when you do dry docking like this, is it still owned by the government? Are they the ones paying for dry docking, or
no? We do not get any regular support from the Canadian federal or provincial governments. We do get we do apply for grants, some of which we get, but we get no regular support in that way. The Canadian Coast Guard does appreciate the work we do, and they have posted about us a number of times, but we don't get any regular financial support from them either. But we are talking with a couple of groups to potentially repaint the entire hull this upcoming year and a few other things as well. So there is stuff in the works, but to answer your first question, though, no, we don't get anything regular.
Thank you. Second question, who was Alexander Henry?
Okay, so Most Canadian Coast Guard ships.
This story is pretty interesting too. So yeah, go ahead, Connor.
So most Canadian Coast Guard ships are named after people of either historic or cultural significance. There are a few exceptions, like, for example, CCGS Griffin, which is named after the first European ship to really explore the Great Lakes. So there's a few exceptions. But Henry herself was named after an explorer named Alexander Henry. And there were two of them. She's the first ship I recall seeing too. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, Eric. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you why we have that, but we do.
Could that be meters and feet?
It could very well be.
Or I'm sorry. Yeah, meters and feet, maybe. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Imperial and metric or whatever.
Yeah. So there's actually two Alexander Henrys. There's Alexander Henry the Elder, which some websites incorrectly credit as being the person who is named after, but it's actually named after his nephew, Alexander Henry the Younger, who went on a number of expeditions throughout Canada and the United States, fur trading, exploring. But one thing he was really famous for was he was actually a very detailed diarist, or a journal guy. He wrote his journals. And at the time in the 1950s, his journals were kind of being rediscovered. And he had extremely detailed descriptions of life in that era. And that was part of one of the reasons why he was chosen.
And what era are we talking about? I'm sorry.
The name of the namesake of the ship, Alexander.
No. What era was he in?
It was the 1800s.
1800s.
Yeah, so he was primarily, his journals start like right in the 1790s, and he unfortunately passed away in 1814, around what is near Astoria, Oregon today. I think it's Oregon, but yeah. That's where he passed away, unfortunately.
Home of Kindergarten Cop, yes.
Yes.
Anyway,
yeah, he was right near that. It was involved with the whole War of 1812 and stuff.
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty interesting how this ship was named after a fur trader, and I've never heard of anything like that. That's probably the only instance I've ever heard of that happening, and I just found that fascinating.
It is a pretty unique namesake, and it actually kind of fits my region because my city is host to Old Fort William Historical Park, which is one of the largest recreations of a fur trading post in North America.
Cool.
So I think it is kind of fitting in that respect because he did actually visit the original fort.
That is really cool.
So when the Alexander Henry goes into dry dock, and I know you said it's been about 10 years.
Yeah.
When a Fletcher class destroyer like the USS the Sullivans or a destroyer escort like the Slater, one of the things it goes into dry dock, one of the things they have to talk about or have to worry about is you've got an incredibly thin hull, 3/8 of an inch thick. And I apologize to those that don't want to get into the engineering details, but tough. I can't imagine you guys have the same concerns that a destroyer escort has with a thin hull. You've got an incredibly thick hull. Yeah. So you're not worrying about cracks. You're not worrying about degradation of the steel per se, are you?
Well, no, and we're extremely fortunate because Henry in total only spent 3 months in salt water in her entire existence.
Around Newfoundland, right?
Yeah, and she went to Newfoundland from August to October of 84. And basically what happened was one of her half-sisters, as we call them, because there were a ton of Coast Guard ships that were similar but not the same. One of her half-sisters, Humphrey Gilbert, was put into dry dock, and she was in dry dock longer than expected, so they pulled the Henry out of the Great Lakes to take her place for a few months. So that was the only time she ever touched salt water. So we have very little corrosion, if any, really.
Nice.
In that regard. I mean, fresh water will still corrode, but comparison to a saltwater vessel.
Do you have any kind of water coming in at all?
To my
through a hull
knowledge,
like
no.
that?
To my knowledge, no.
Wow. That's
And I
pretty
go aboard
incredible.
every day. So
Yeah.
That's so amazing, right? Like looking at this ship,
Mhm.
and that the fact that she is shorter in
Mhm.
length than our croaker is
Mhm.
astounding to me. Our submarine.
Yeah.
You know,
I was
it's,
on
it, I mean,
Silverside this
it's,
year. I was
and
on
you know,
Silverside this year, and I thought the same thing.
yeah. And as you said, the weight was 2,500 tons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was roughly that.
Yeah.
It was 2,537 tons.
So what's it like to be a volunteer for something like the Henry, an icebreaker? When it comes to people coming on board, are they guided tours? Do you allow people to just roam around, self-guided like the Buffalo Naval Park? How do you guys operate that?
So, just before I answer that, I just want to say that after I'm done, I would like to tell you how we brought it to Thunder Bay. Because,
We'll get to that.
Yeah. But to answer, oh, help me. What was your? Oh no, what was your question?
Yeah. Well, I was just, what? Maybe we should
I
before
was going to be a volunteer. I remember now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so what it's like to be a volunteer? I think it's awesome. My function on the ship when we're open is as a tour guide. Because we've been operating for the last two seasons in sort of a slower COVID mindful way, we've just done guided tours. So the ship, so we essentially we schedule tours at certain times. Enough people show up, everyone goes on, do the tour, and we're thinking
Uh-oh.
Oh, did he just lock up?
for the
There he goes.
looking at the guided tour system.
Do me
And
a
we
favor.
are-
Repeat what you just said, because you locked up for a few moments.
Okay. So to answer your question, we have been operating in a sort of a COVID mindful way. So we've been in guided tours only. But now that we're hopefully with COVID in the taillights, we're hoping that we might change it up, but we're still just looking at that. So I can't really say anything for certain yet. But right now we are a guided tour situation.
And okay, so then you talked about, or you briefly touched on, so when the Henry was replaced,
Mhm.
and what I had read was that there were three options.
Mhm.
She could be scrapped, and there was a tremendous cost with scrapping the Alexander Henry. I was surprised. It was like $400,000, and but there were two other options. One of which was to be handed over. It was Kingston, right?
Yeah. So what you're referring to is when Kingston lost the ship in 2016, and yes, they had three options for disposal. They could scrap the ship, sink the ship as a diving attraction in Lake Ontario,
right. Yeah.
Or donate it to another museum. And that's where we come into the picture.
All right. So what was involved in getting the Henry over to where it is now?
Okay. So the Kingston Museum had her from the later half of 85 until 2016. Unfortunately, that museum was forced to move from their location because they had been renting their property from the Canadian government for $1 a year. It's part of a heritage initiative. Sadly, in 2016, the Canadian government decided to sell the property to a condo developer. So the Henry got kicked off their property, and they had to moor it to an island. There's actually a picture of it moored to the island if you look through.
Hold on
all
a
the
second.
trees in the background.
Oh, wait, in the trees in the
Yeah, there are
background?
trees in the background.
Hold on a second. I think I know which picture you're talking about. You're talking about Shane. What are you doing?
What do you mean?
There, I'm muting his mic. I don't know what he was doing. Let's see. I know
just
which
sounded
picture
like a teacher.
I don't know what he was doing. Who? I just sounded like a teacher.
Yeah, yelling at his students.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
No,
there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so
Okay. Shane's behaving now, so he's got his mic back.
So what happened was they were forced to move from their location, and they moored the Henry next to an island near Kingston. And the owner of this property owned a scrapyard, from what I understand. And he gave them 1 year to find a new home for the ship. Gave them 1 year. And he said, if you don't, I'll take it, essentially. I'll take it and I'll scrap it.
Wow.
So they had 3 choices: scrapping, sinking as a diving attraction, or giving it to us. We had just formed that year in 2016, and our mission was to preserve the transportation history of the region. We are the Lakehead Transportation Museum Society, and we heard that the Henry was at risk of being scrapped, and many of our older members decided that we should try and bring the Henry home. And over the next year, we raised money to bring the ship home. And the city of Thunder Bay chipped in $100,000. And the city of Kingston, surprisingly, came in with $50,000 because even they did not want to see the ship scrapped. Mm-hmm. So we purchased the ship from the city of from the Kingston Museum for $2. $1 to us and $1 to the lawyers. And then we had the ship towed from Kingston to Thunder Bay. It cost roughly $240,000 to make the move, and it took us 10 days. And she arrived back in our harbor on the 27th of June, 2017. The deadline that scrapper had given them was June 30th. So we beat them by 13 days. That was just how close to the wire we were getting when we brought her home. Wow, initially we moored her to the old iron ore dock until we negotiated with the city, and then in November of 2017 she was docked where she is now at the old Pool 6 site, which is now actually our new cruise ship dock. Cruise ships dock directly behind us.
So is that the way the Henry appears now?
No, that's Kingston.
Oh.
Yeah, because you see the dry dock she's in?
That's the dry dock.
Yeah. It's in the dry dock in that picture. Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's a beautiful location.
It is. Seriously, they had 100% the best place a museum ship could ask for. And I will say, though, in a good turn of events, the company that the Canadian government sold it to, that property to, determined it wasn't suitable for condo development. A third party bought the property and then donated it back to that museum. So that museum is now back in its original home again. Just without their ship
back.
No, they can keep the model. They have the model.
Okay. Nice. There was a picture of the model. So this is
their ship.
Okay. This is how it's set up now.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, so this is how we set up now. Currently, we don't have a proper building. We just have a gift shop, which is pictured. You can see there, that little building. Mm-hmm. We have a few other things on the property. We have, which I unfortunately didn't send you pictures of, but we do have other boats and train-related artifacts on the grounds, because we're a transportation museum. And normally people buy their tickets, meet their tour guide right at the gangway there, and then just walk on, and it's about a 45-minute tour.
Frank had a question here I wanted to bring up because I'm curious too. Does the Alexander Henry still, or can it run?
Everything is still there. Unfortunately, the ship hasn't run in since '85. So however many years it's been, 47 years roughly. So it would need a lot of work. And at this time, we really can't afford to get running again. So it's not, as it stands right now, no, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
One of the biggest challenges, when the Buffalo Naval Park is hit with that question, one of the biggest challenges is that, these ships are available essentially after they've been what do you want to call it, Shane? Like scavenged for parts,
Yeah,
over the years.
cannibalized by the
Yeah.
Navy.
So, a lot of people will ask the questions like, well, can the Sullivans run? Can the USS Little Rock run? Well, no, because if there's an engine block there, that might be it. All these other parts were, they don't make them anymore. So basically what you're saying is the Henry is intact,
Yes.
but you'd obviously have to. How many engines
There's a
does
lot
it
of
have?
work that needs to be done. It was actually quite remarkable because when the Coast Guard retired her, they actually sailed her to the dry dock that she was in at Kingston. Yeah, so
Okay.
she had an epic in May of 85. They left Thunder Bay for what they thought would be the last time. They took a 10-day trip. They visited her base at Parry Sound. They stopped in Windsor, Ontario, and they worked their way to Kingston, where they literally sailed her into the dock. And our very last record of the day is the day they handed over the keys, essentially, which was the 27th of May. So, yeah, it's quite an incredible story. I do think they did some minor welding to like cut a hole in a stack or something to technically disable. But yeah, I can't say for sure. But everything's still there. Her props are still on. Her engine's still there. So she's relatively in good shape.
How many shafts, Connor?
2 shafts.
2 shafts. 1 rudder or 2 rudder? Probably
One
at that
rudder.
speed, 1 rudder. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does the Alexander Henry have any secrets?
In what way? Not anything drastic. Like there was no murders or no deaths on board.
No, nothing like that per se. Like, are there any? Like, I always like to find out if there's any particular place on the ship that that's your favorite, that maybe not part of the tour, anything like that at all.
Well, my favorite place on the ship that isn't part of the tour, if we're going to go by that, is the engine room. It's a very cool space. We're possibly going to open it up for limited tours next year, special guests, things like that. We haven't opened it up regularly yet, but we are definitely considering now, because I know before I got on, you were talking about doing special tours of certain parts of the ship that weren't just part of the normal tour. We're considering doing something like that too, like a hard hat type tour. But yeah, and other than that, though, my favorite place on the ship has got to be the wheelhouse, because you're 5 stories in the air, and it's just a beautiful, like you can't really see it, but there's a beautiful view of the city from the wheelhouse, because we're actually facing the city from this angle, this position.
Is there an open bridge there too, Connor? Like on the sides of those like bridge wings, or
Yes.
is that just like is that the overhead of the?
No, it's open bridge wings.
There's actually a picture of a model.
Yeah, there.
That, like, if I go here, it doesn't really, but I mean, you can kind of see like to the side of the wheelhouse on either side, port and starboard, you can kind of see, bridge wings.
Yeah, so there is 2 open wings.
Uh-huh.
Oh, look at the helo on the back. You don't have the helo, do you? Though?
No, we don't. Unfortunately.
I thought I read online they did not equip the ship with that.
We could operate a helicopter. We just had no facilities to like store one, so we didn't have a hangar.
Okay.
Yeah. So a helicopter could land, and it's funny you brought that up. Henry's first blueprint, where she was just known as hold on, what's the number again? She was originally just known as Project 865. That original design did not have a helicopter deck. That was added in about 2 years between. Ken doesn't like open bridges. That was open. That was added. The helicopter deck was added between her first blueprint and her finalized design. And I will say though that the wheelhouse does actually close, so everything's functional. You can be inside. We're not like British cruisers where everything is open and miserable. Yeah.
Well, let's see here. I just wanted to scan just to see if there were any other questions that people were asking. Did we hit them all?
I have a
Eric?
question.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Connor. Are you guys still trying to acquire that? Was it a tugboat? The historic tugboat?
Yeah. So, the tugboat that John is referring to is a tugboat known as the James Whalen. If you were on Museum Ship's Facebook group, you would have probably seen me posting about it. The Henry is unfortunately our city's, I think, 4th attempt at a museum ship.
Wow.
The first 2 never showed up, like they never got them. The Whalen was the first to succeed, and she was an ice-breaking tug built in Toronto that operated in the city of Thunder Bay, or in the cities of Port Arthur and Fort William, from 1905 until 1965. She was brought back to Thunder Bay in the 90s, but unfortunately, due to negligence on the part of the city of Thunder Bay, just simply due to the fact that I wouldn't put a blame on any particular people, it just really just wasn't a focus for them. She unfortunately ended up springing a leak, and she sank in the river she was in. We had been looking at getting it because the Henry was in part built to replace the Wayland as our harbor's icebreaker. We've been hoping to get it, but with the combination of it sinking and the damage caused by her being raised this September, we're just waiting to see what the city's decision is on the Wayland. We would love to work
Gotcha.
with the city of Thunder Bay in restoring this piece of our community's maritime history, but at this time, we're just having to wait and see.
When John sent me, the way this came about, John sent me an email basically saying, hey, there's this guy Connor and there's an icebreaker, Alexander Henry, Thunder Bay, blah blah blah. Let's have him on. And like I said, I've always been curious about icebreakers, so I thought this was great. But one thing I don't understand is, how did you, Connor, and John cross paths?
Museum ships.
The Facebook
Really?
group.
Yeah.
The
Facebook
okay.
group museum ships.
So
That-
then that leads me to the question. So where does, or how does the Alexander Henry, and I know you've only been involved, what did you say, like maybe 2 years?
Realistically, I'll be going on 3 years this year.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you find the Alexander Henry fits into the whole museum ship community?
Well, I feel it fits a rather unique role. Like we discussed before, there aren't that many icebreakers in North America as museums. There's Mackinac, there's Acacia. I think that's about it. There's technically Sundew, although she's not a museum anymore. She's privately owned. Yeah, Icebreaker Mackinac, exactly. I think she fills that space, and most notably, she's for Canadian museum ships. She fills an interesting space because while there are 2 other Coast Guard museum ships in Canada, Henry is the largest, and I honestly think she fills a very important role that doesn't get enough credit, because these guys, they aren't policing, like they aren't going after drug smugglers or something like that. These are the guys who go out there every single day, every single week, and do the mandatory work that's needed to keep our maritime economies running, whether it be keeping the buoys functional, whether it be supporting the lighthouses back in the day, whether in these days it's repairing the lighthouses, whether it's just clearing ice so that those last Lakers or freighters can get through. I think that by Henry being a museum, she represents not just the Canadian Coast Guard, but also the work that both Coast Guards on the Great Lakes do to keep our economy running. And I think that's an important job that needs to be reminded. People need to be reminded about.
Well, I can definitely pick up on the passion that you have for this ship here. Definitely, without a doubt. You got the bug.
I do. I will not deny it.
What's next for the Henry coming up in 2023? You started off by talking about how you guys are really kind of did you use the term rebranding, or you're creating a whole new approach? I asked you before we came on, if you guys had a YouTube channel, if you had a Facebook page, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you're almost creating that
So
from this point forward.
mhm. So we did have a Facebook page, which was called the Lakehead Transportation Museum Society.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, due to problems that I can't bring into right now, we lost access to it.
Okay.
So it is dead. At the same time, we've also decided that we will probably rebranding our public name to be the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay. And this is partially due to the fact that when people are coming to the city for tours or to do touristy things, because our city is the linchpin of the Canadian highway system, you can't drive in Canada without coming past our city. When you look up Thunder Bay, you don't see the Henry because we're called the Lakehead Transportation Museum Society. This region hasn't been called the Lakehead officially in 50 years. It's the Thunder Bay district. So by doing that, we make ourselves more obvious to the public. By being a transportation museum, we stay truthful to our goal, which is to preserve and remember all aspects of transportation, even though the Henry is our biggest artifact. And we are planning on creating a new Facebook page in the near future. If you want to know when that Facebook page goes live, I would recommend following, and I've mentioned it before, the Museum Ship Facebook group, because I will post updates there as we get closer to the launch. We are looking at YouTube as well once we get internet back on site, because we're actually going to be getting a bunch of new systems set up there. And yeah, and if you want to reach us directly, our email is info@tmtb.ca. So if you have any questions about whether it be volunteering, donation, just interested in general, just send us an email there and we will get back to you.
It was
Did it cut out?
No, I heard you. I just want to make sure I got this right. It was info@tmtb.ca.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Like I said a few moments ago, I can definitely pick up how passionate you are about this particular ship, which I think is cool. But what I also find pretty interesting, I've got a huge passion for YouTube and getting these museums and museum ships out on, various social media platforms. So I think it's a pretty exciting time for you guys. And I don't know, I think the Alexander Henry is pretty lucky that you decided to take a tour a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I don't want to sound self-important or anything, but I would agree. If I could address...
hey, if we don't brag about ourselves, who's going to brag about us? So yeah, don't go humble on me.
If I could address something one of the commenters said, Eric H. He said that United States Navy stipulates that boilers and other machinery, thank you, cannot be ran. The difference is the Canadian Coast Guard, unlike their American counterparts, are a civilian operated group. So we are actually not a military organization. Our rules are a little different as a result.
Wait a second. The Canadian Coast Guard is not a military branch?
No.
I never knew that.
Only in America.
Yeah. No, we're our own separate branch of government. Because originally what happened was when the Henry was launched, you'll know she had a black hull. That's because she was actually what was called the Ministry of Transportation's Marine Service. In 1962, so only 2 years after she entered service, that changed. And they were split. Yeah, that's the picture. And Coast Guard covers the sea and Transport Canada covers the land. So that's how it is now.
Okay. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that the Canadian Coast Guard isn't military. Always thought it was.
Yeah, like the Coast Guard still does things like policing, law enforcement, like a lot of the same things. It's just seen in it's operating in a different way.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Connor, I'm glad to have you on, man. It was pretty informative.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, and I will take you up on the when you get closer to launching things like YouTube, Facebook. Maybe we'd like to have you back on and find a way to promote that.
Absolutely. I will keep in contact.
I'm sorry.
I said I will keep in contact for sure.
Oh yeah, please do. So Connor Kilgore with the Alexander Henry Icebreaker. You know what? I just love this picture.
I know.
So I wanted to bring that back up. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, are you able to share the video that I sent in private chat? So it's since we're talking about icebreakers, real quick, we got a video of the Coast Guard breaking the ice around the Slater last year.
Hold on a second.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if
they're only 30 seconds long, 2 clips, but it's pretty cool. So you kind of get an idea what the Henry would have been doing, except on a much larger scale.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you to Connor as well. For being there 2 years, almost 3, as you said. You have gained an impressive wealth of knowledge that I am very impressed with.
Yeah,
and your passion.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shane. And I will say that both as my job as an admin at Museum Ships, but I've been following your work at Buffalo quite closely, and it's just I'm no end of impressed, because the work you guys have had to do, especially after the incident with Sullivan's, is just incredible, and I hope you guys nothing but the best.
Thank you, Connor, and thank you for following. And we'll keep you updated. Now we're connected, and I was trying to prior to COVID, I was working with the Haida, and we were going to do some joint videoing, and then COVID hit, and you said about how stringent the restrictions were in Canada, and for 2 years they just weren't at work. It kind of deadened and killed all of that momentum that we had. But I'm looking to reach back out and do joint things with them, because they're only an hour and a half away from us. So
you should also talk with the Ojibwe in Port Burwell. It's not that much farther away. It's like maybe an hour farther. She's in Port Burwell, Ontario, right on Lake Erie.
Port Burwell. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. John, I'm trying to pull that video up. For some reason, I can't get it. I can't.
Oh, you know what? I could probably share my screen.
If you can pull it up, go for it, because I'm trying to pull it up through. It's just, for some reason, I can't get it to go.
Do you see it, Shane?
I didn't get the name of the ship, because it seems like it's an Aboriginal name or something. So I just went to the port.
OJIBWE?
No. It's Shane's video. Hold on. I'll send it to you in the private chat.
Okay.
Oh, John's able to pull it up. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So this is an icebreaker running around the Slater?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically what the icebreaker is doing here, it's actually going up over the ice, and it's crushing it with its weight.
But did the Henry do the same thing?
Yes, it's the exact same thing. Only that ship is probably a third of the weight.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to ask that question, but I held off because I wasn't 100% sure that's how it operated.
Yeah. There's a few ways ships break ice, but generally it's by creating force on the ice and causing it to buckle under the ship, at least with the way the Great Lakes ones work.
So then that means that the Alexander Henry has some pretty serious horsepower, engine-wise, to force it, the weight of the ship. And I'm not saying the whole ship, obviously, but probably the bow, the front third, to force it onto the ice. There's got to be some serious horsepower behind those engines.
Well, like I said, we have 2 engines. I'm getting 3,550 bhp. That's what it's saying here, anyway.
And
like I said, I'm not the engineer; I'm the tour guide.
Got it. Yeah, 2 engines on board, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah. And
so, go ahead.
yeah, and like I said, Henry wasn't the most powerful, even amongst her sisters, but she did the job she was designed for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I love that sideways launch. I mean, that is a beautiful.
I know.
I mean, there's nothing like that. You know,
Yeah,
because
it's
if
a
you
great
look,
picture, isn't it?
you could just see the buildings across the river or whatever it is. If you slid her down normal, she'd go smack right in.
So if you could actually go through the pictures for a second, there's one picture. It isn't the one where you're in the dry dock, but you know there's that wider picture of her in the dry dock. You see the whole ship?
Yeah, hold on a second here. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Because I want to just bring this up.
Let's see. Okay, so are you talking about this one?
No, not that one. I think I sent it to you. That one, there it is.
Here, hold on.
So that shipyard right there, that's the same place that she launched. She's in her home dry dock in that picture.
What year is this?
So I don't know an exact year, but because she does not have the white racing stripe on the side, that would put her between 1963 and 1975.
Okay.
And this was probably a little earlier too, because she's got the older radar dish on top. So I'm guessing late 60s, judging by this picture. But yeah, she was in her home dry dock in this picture, and when we eventually get her into dry dock again, she will probably be going to the exact same place. And
that's really cool.
What is the goal, or what is the purpose of getting her into a dry dock? I asked the question because it sounds like this hull is amazing.
Yeah.
And you're not taking on any water. So why the need to get it in dry dock?
So like I said, we're not looking at right in the immediate future. But it's something we're looking at in the future to do. Simply because in 25 years, they're not 25 years, in about a decade's time, it'll have been 22, 23 years. And we don't want to be in a situation where something cracks and we all of a sudden have to raise an emergency fund. So we're always keeping it in the back of our mind. It's not a priority yet, but it is something our staff does talk about semi-regularly.
Got it. Preventative maintenance, Yeah. Okay. I get
but it's not at the top of our list yet. Right now, this year, getting the rest of the paint done. That's the priority.
Well, and rebranding the whole museum. I mean, that's a big step in and of itself. I can't stress it enough. Obviously maintaining the ships, that's one thing, but building a solid museum around them, to keep them going, that's another. And
the fact that you guys are all volunteers as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is I would imagine most people have a full-time job or something outside of that, and you're still able to maintain the ship that's
well, a lot
in great condition.
Yeah, a lot of us are doing this while still having jobs. So we just divide the work as needed, and hopefully things turn out, because it should be good this year. We're hoping now that the fears of COVID have hopefully mostly rescinded. We're hoping to get back to our pre-COVID American visitation, because they made about 40% of our visitors in pre-COVID years, and we're hoping to get back up to that.
So
you're all invited, by the way, if you ever come north of the border.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You're all invited if you ever come north of the border.
Well, I'm probably the closest one.
I'll be up there soon. I got to go get some Swiss Chalet, so I'm going up there soon. I mean, I live 5 minutes from the Peace Bridge, so yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, I live about 40 minutes from the border.
Shane, John, any other questions for Connor?
I don't think so.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
I would
All right.
encourage
Well,
everyone here to go to the Museum Ship's Facebook page, though. It's
Yeah, I'll be
amazing.
blunt. I'm not familiar with. You would think I would be,
Ah.
but I'm not. I'm not familiar with the Museum Ship's Facebook page.
Yeah,
And
well, it's actually a group, but
yeah,
it's a
Facebook
Yeah, the
group.
page should. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a group that, and I'll just show for my other passion, ship related. It's a Facebook group that's, I think we're seeing at 65,000 people now, but we're dedicated to the not like essentially the promotion of museum ships, not just in the United States but globally. Our president, or not our president, but our founder isn't American, although he is an American citizen. I think only one of our members, or not one of our members, one of our admins is actually American born. So we are an international group, even though the American ships do get a lot of the limelight because there's just so many of you guys. And we promote and we try and just raise awareness for the stuff that people like us do. Like, we are preserving maritime, naval, and just history in general. And I think that's really important thing to promote. That's what we do.
You would think with a live broadcast like Museum Ship Mafia that we should definitely be cross paths with you guys. So, and did you say you're a moderator or an admin?
I'm an admin.
Wow. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm definitely glad to have met you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. Let's see.
And you can find our website at museumships.us.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Museumships.us. And for and like I said a while ago, I think your guys' website, let me pull it up real quick. Because I want people to it's pretty solid, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just rebuilt it.
Here it is. So yeah, it's pretty solid website. That's www.tmtb.ca. And where was that? I know you gave us here it is. So if you guys have any questions for Connor or any need to get in touch, it's info@tmtb.ca. So Connor, thanks for giving us the time tonight. Connor Kilgore with the Alexander Henry Icebreaker Museum Ship, Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker, on display in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Like I said, www.tmtb.ca. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Connor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Connor, I'm going to shut you down like I always say, because now we're going to talk behind your back.
Okay.
But thanks for giving us the time, and I hope you have a good evening.
Yeah, you too, guys. Have a good night.
Very much.
Keep up the good work.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
And Connor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say having Connor on was all because of John, and that connection that you made. So yeah, thanks for setting that up, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great, and that would be nice. This could be our first realm into the international world of museum ships, and it's safe, it's close to home, all that stuff. So yeah, it's good. Very impressed with Connor. I mean, he's really embraced. Oh, there we go again.
Yeah, I can't get enough of that picture. I think it's pretty cool. The thing about Connor, like I said a few moments ago, he's like the perfect example of someone being passionate about this particular ship. You can be passionate about a destroyer, definitely about a battleship, submarine. And like I said, I've always been curious about icebreakers. There's a little bit of mystery surrounding them that I've always been interested in, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that guy definitely has the passion. He's not getting paid. He's a volunteer. And I mean, there's a lot of work ahead of them to get things, if you want to say rebranded, but I don't know. I thought he was pretty impressive. And I was glad to have him on tonight. Hopefully the viewers that were joining us tonight feel the same way. And I'm kind of flipping through here just to see if there were any questions. Eric says,
excellent.
thanks, John. Great guest.
John Dugan, I'm coming to see Slater and the Sullivans in September when Drac is visiting. He'll be in. I'm sure he'll be in Albany, right? I'm sure.
Oh, for the Hinsa conference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just he was there in Hawaii. Ken, are you planning on going?
Yeah, I sure am.
Oh, I'll skip out then. Okay, good.
What's that? Are you still upset that I shut your mic off earlier?
No. I was just playing around with the sound or the volume of the speaker. That's all.
Gotcha. Well, all right. That was another pretty good one. For upcoming episodes, if any of the viewers have any subjects that you guys would like us to cover, definitely please let us know. I know Shane behind the scenes, that was who was that? That was out of Galveston.
Oh, sorry.
What's that?
I recently sent out those emails. I haven't heard from Travis yet, but
no. But it was the guy out of Galveston. Who was that?
Oh, with the Cavallo and the Stewart?
Yeah.
Why can't I find? Oh, no, it was Buzz from Cass and Young. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not out of yeah.
Yeah, Buzz from the Cass and Young. So he did respond. We're still waiting for Travis from the Texas.
Yeah.
Who I reached out to Janet Cobb, the executive director of the USS Alabama, to see if she wanted to designate a staff or herself. And there's one other place
What is William talking about when he talks about the Antarctic fleet?
I assume Icebreaker. That's what I would say just right off the bat. Icebreakers, part of the, but
they did do the destroyer escorts were part of it, 50s and 60s. The deep freeze operations, Antarctica.
You mean it's like? Are you talking like militaristic UN?
Yeah, so they took a bunch of DEs and I'm assuming destroyers and the radar picket ships. Yeah. Not Australia. What's next to Australia? Why am I going blank? What's down there?
New Zealand.
New Zealand, yes. Yeah, they operate out of New Zealand. Yeah.
Really?
Okay. Yep. I know the Sullivans. I know all three of our ships were in the Arctic, right?
Well, that's
at NATO exercises.
Okay.
I can't remember the operation names offhand, but I know all three of them they're blue noses, I guess you could say. But Antarctic.
We have a tour guide. He served on 2 DEs in the 50s in the Antarctic.
Wow.
Yeah, he's in his mid 80s.
Connor sent a note. He's planning on going to the Hinsa conference this year.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, look forward to meeting you. And I don't know if they're members of Hinsa, but if they can, they should become members of Hinsa if they can.
Yeah, so Frank was talking about the Antarctic fleet. They were radar pickets, part of the radar. I'm not familiar with that. I'm going to have to research that one. That might be interesting. One of the things that I wanted to mention to you guys, and behind the scenes, I know I've kind of pitched the idea of possibly kind of like doing a book club situation, but you guys have a ton of books that you need to read. One of the things I wanted to do an episode on was a favorite book of yours that you have read. That you want.
Well, I think you already know mine.
Do I?
Last Stand of Tin Can Sailors.
I kind of thought that would be the case, but there, and you could definitely talk about why that would be your favorite. I mean, I have my reasons too, but do you think that would be an interesting episode? I would love to hear what you guys. And your favorite book may not be Tin Can. Horn Fisher's Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors. But Shane, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's cool because I'm a book nerd, right? So, favorite naval book, I assume, correct?
Yeah,
or book on the military or branches. Yeah,
possibly, and make your pitch as to why it's
absolutely. I've got one that stands right out, baby.
We might have to do that. Especially since we've got Audible starting to kind of support us a little bit. That might be a pretty good one to cover.
No problem at all.
All right, John Epp, curator, USS Slater, Albany, New York. Before we sign off, anything you want to pitch or let us know what's coming up?
No, we're just getting ready for the season. We'll open April 5th. If anyone does decide to come visit us in the first 2-3 weeks tops of the season, it is going to be a little mess. Actually, our gift shop will be operating out of one of those pod storage units in the parking lot, so that's going to be interesting. Our first speaker event is going to be April. It's the last Saturday of April, 29th, 30th, something like that. So that's something you may want to check out as well.
Okay,
Cool.
Let's see. And in order to check out videos that the USS Slater has coming up, their YouTube channel, simply search for USS Slater. It'll come right up. Website, ussslater.org. And for Shane Stevenson, curator of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park, what's coming up for you guys?
Sure. We open March 25th. We are going to be it's celebrating the 80th anniversary. So that's a subject we're not going to cover now, but so we're working with the Cass and Young and the Kidd, because all of our ships are having all of our Fletchers are having the 80th anniversary this year. So we've had some good Zoom conversations and emails, and we are setting a course for the rest of the season, specifically for us with the Sullivans, but then we're also going to be doing some celebrations with the Kidd and the Cass and Young, and certainly the Charette / the Velos, which is in Greece, which is also her 80th as well. Very quickly after we open on March 29th, we have the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Day celebration. So we're honoring Vietnam veterans, and then our season just kicks off, and looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting year. We're getting the report back from Joe Lombardi probably within 2 to 3 weeks, his final report as the surveyor. And then we will chart a course from what his recommendations are for the rest of the season and getting into dry dock.
What about the members only section that you guys have on your YouTube channel, and what's coming up next for that?
For the members who become members, we're going to do 2 members only videos, and then do a 1/20/100 watch with Shane and Steven. And so that's every month. So starting this with February, we're now on the 8th. I have not filmed it yet, but I'll be getting one out probably next week. Then our live session, and then another video to follow up for the last month of February. So yeah, we're steady and we're growing a little bit, and it's appreciated for everyone. And I hope people find value from it and participate.
So when is the next 2000? So the 2000 watch is now going to be on the members only section. When is the next one coming up?
Oh, he's not here to defend himself. I have no idea with Steven.
Oh, so that's Steven? Okay. Steve.
Yeah,
okay,
he'll just say, "Hey, how about today?" And I'll be like, "What?"
Well, I enjoyed the last one. I thought it was a different way of going about it. And
for
those of you that aren't aware, the Buffalo Naval Park has their own members only section. You can find it next to the subscribe button. Simply click join. It'll take you right there. It's $4.95 a month. And that's kind of some behind the scenes approach to what's going on at the Buffalo Naval Park. Anything else that you wanted to mention, Shane?
No, I think we're good. This was a great talk. Connors seems to be like a great guy, and thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, in order to check out the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park, their YouTube channel, simply search for Buffalo Naval Park, and of course their website, buffalonavalpark.org. Anything else that you guys wanted to cover?
I think that's it.
What do you got coming up?
Actually been creating a bunch of YouTube shorts about some subjects that I'm seriously interested in. So yeah, if you guys want to check out History X, some YouTube shorts that I've been creating kind of about the U.S. Navy. I don't know if many people are aware, but the U.S. Navy actually had 2 flying aircraft carriers.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I know that's John, you're kind of smiling, but they did. They're pretty amazing. They were the USS Macon and the USS Akron. and I've always wanted to do videos about it. So I created a couple of YouTube shorts about that. You can check out History X. Simply search for History X channel on YouTube and go into the shorts section. They're less than a minute long, and they talk about the USS Akron and the Macon. Like I said, flying aircraft carriers. And then there's another video about, unfortunately, some tragic deaths that occurred trying to get these things to dock. They were not easy to dock. And so I created a couple of YouTube shorts about that. Frank, have you checked them? It sounds like Frank's checked them out.
Great.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll be posting some more. So those are pretty good platform to get some subjects that I'm extremely interested in onto YouTube. And let's see. William Walker, why not try a short on the USS Michigan battleship to sub?
So USS Michigan was a battleship, and then now it was a submarine, nuclear sub.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay.
Maybe. And for John, he asked a question about the membership real quick. It's $4.99. It's $4.99 a month. So you would pay once a month and it's $4.99, $4.99.
Yeah, that's actually what's kind of cool about when you join some of these YouTube channels. No, yeah, it's totally monthly. There's no commitment, there's no requirement, and you're able to just check out what they have to offer. And some channels you might find it's like, yeah, all right, not for me. And then, you let them, but at least you try it out and you support the channel. I think if you check out what Shane and Steven have going on, it's pretty interesting. And if for no other reason, it's $5 a month. It's another great way to just throw your support behind what's going on in these channels. So definitely check out the Buffalo Naval Parks members only section and, give it a test drive.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully that answered John's question. Let's see, Frank. Yeah, Frank, you've been checking out the shorts. I appreciate the support. Thanks for checking those out. I'll be posting some more. And, if you subscribe to History X, you'll get a notification that they're coming up. If there isn't anything else, I just want to remind people that Audible, starting to support Museum Ship Mafia. So this episode is partially made possible by Audible audiobooks. Listen to the good stuff. Check out the link to Audible in the description below for this live broadcast. Click on it. I've got a couple of links to some example books like Pappy Boyington's Baba Black Sheep. That's a fantastic audiobook to check out if you guys haven't already. So definitely check out Audible. And with that being said, as I always say, apologies to Ryan Szymanski of the Battleship New Jersey for not being able to get him on this week, but one of these days we'll have Ryan on. I'm sure he understands. For audio versions of this podcast, search for Museum Ship Mafia on your favorite podcast platform. If there isn't anything else from John and Shane, my name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we're going to shut this down. Everyone have a great
night.
Thank you, guys.